think we all have components in our lives that we're not very proud of. We all have specific areas of growth and specific challenges we wish to act differently on, and perhaps that we've been procrastinating on. I get asked a lot by people, how do I start fresh when I have so much, I guess, ultimately baggage or poor habits or poor ways of doing things, and how do I actually get to a better place? I think the easiest way I can answer that is that you're never going to get to a better place all at once. You're not going to wake up one day, decide to change, and suddenly be in a much better place. You have to understand that the consequences of your past actions are going to continuously come up time and time again before you're able to entirely see that turnaround. So it's important to understand that no change is going to come easily, and no change is going to come quickly. But it's also important to understand that without starting to change, then how can you expect anything to happen differently than it was in previous days, right? If you don't like your friends and tomorrow you continue to keep half of your friends around even though you don't like any of them, or you don't believe any of them are of value to you, then that's almost the same thing, right? That's no different right there as well, because all you're saying is that I'm just going to sacrifice half my friends because they're all bad, but I just want to be comfortable. You have to understand that the reason why you're growing bad habits and keeping them instead of going away from them, even though you know they're bad for you, and regardless that it's friends or habits like smoking or even dealing with, habits like gambling or anything that you don't want to do. I mean, if you like gambling, then continue to gamble. If you don't like it and you feel like it's an addiction, then you need to stop. The only reason you like it is because it's now part of your comfort zone. It's what feels good, right? So when you wake up every day, doing those things feel good. Like, it feels comfortable, it feels normal. And not doing them throws you into a zone that's just, it's difficult to kind of like change that entire habit of, if you're used to going outside 10 times a day and smoking, well, obviously it's going to be difficult to entirely quit all at once, right? But it's also not difficult, or should I say it's less difficult, if you start by at least acting on certain elements of your life first, rather than trying to change everything at once. So for people who smoke, for example, well, obviously you smoke, and smoking in essence, even though you'll say, well, it feels good, it's not because of insecurity, it's not because of stress, it's not because of lack of control over my life, I just like smoking. Well, that's bullshit, you're lying. The only reason you smoke is because you're incapable of dealing with the amount of stress or the amount of pressure that goes on in your life, and you need a release. And I know that it's going to sound weird, but smoking a cigarette is no different than doing crack. It's just on a higher level or on a different scale, but nonetheless, it's the same escape feeling. By no means am I judging anyone who smokes or who does crack or anything else. That's your choice. You live your life the way you want. Just remember that if you're doing these things out of your control and feel like you are aware that these things are hurting who you are and you choose to do them, you need to change them. And so instead of trying to change that act alone, which might be difficult, then try to focus and be realistic with yourself and ask yourself, what is it in your life that's making you take on these acts? And then also ask yourself, what is it in the past that's triggered those acts? And if these triggers are no longer there, like you were going through a hard time and you stopped, and there's just this habit form, then it's going to be much easier to break the habit because that pressure no longer exists. But if there's different pressures now in your life and different points of stress, then try to understand what these points are and start changing your habits there. And once you change them there, then eventually it'll just make it easier for you to quit because you'll be more in control. I always said that, if you smoke, a way to counter that is to go to the gym a lot. And if you go to the gym a lot, you tend to start thinking healthier, you start eating healthier. And if you start a routine around being healthy in general, you'll see that smoking will take a secondary phase to your life, and as a result of that, you'll be able to quit it much easier than when it's a primary release in your life. So in other words, you have to substitute a bad habit with a better habit, and continuously do that until all your habits are wiped, all your bad habits are wiped, and instead you have all of these good routines that lead to your growth rather than your destruction. I don't think it's easy. I've coached a lot of people out of depression. I've coached a lot of people out of just not being great at what they did, and just kind of heading down the wrong path. I mean, I've taken people away from gambling debt. I've, you know, helped people who've had major addictions to anything from cigarettes to other related drugs. And you know, I think the common theme here is that it's not easy. Every one of them struggled. Every one of them had their times where, you know, they looked at something else. Like if it wasn't smoke, they looked at alcohol. They looked at losing control another way, just so that they could substitute that feeling. And it was ultimately just having someone keep getting them back out of it and believe in them and reminding them of what they're fighting for, that it allowed them to kind of get out of it and really graduate past that stage. But for themselves as individuals, outside of the support they had from an external force, it was really finding something they wanted more than that bad habit itself. So, you know, you have to find something to hang on to that matters more to you than the bad habit you've engaged in. And then really make that the focal focus of your entire life, you know, going forward. So, and I think that way you'll be able to really, you know, change and move forward. One last piece on change is that, you know, there's an argument out there as to, can people change? Can people become better? Can people be different? You know, you always hear the line, once a cheater, always a cheater. I mean, you have to understand that you are the way you are because of the things that have happened in your life that have led to you becoming who you are. So the future events of your life will certainly determine who you become. Who you become does not have to be who you are. You just have to make sure that the circumstance that made you who you are today, if you don't like the things that have happened, you're aware of the things that have happened in your life that made you how you are. And as a result, are able to identify these things and make sure you don't repeat them over and over so that you remain on the same path. I mean, if you truly want change, then change the things you do, change the places you go, change the people you hang out around. And you'll notice that with changing the way you do things, you'll change the way you look at things, and you'll change the things that happen to you, and eventually you'll change yourself and everything around you.